If in the past few decades we had gone to war against the Soviets and their allies, we would have faced a serious threat from anti-tank guided missiles launched in massive numbers from both ground and air. By the early 1960s, motorized rifle troops and BRDMs were equipped with AT-2 swatters or AT-3 saggers, manual command to line-of-sight missiles with a heat warhead and a maximum range of 3,000 meters, capable of penetrating armor 500 millimeters thick. Mi-8 HIP and Mi-24 Hind helicopters carry 4 swatters each. A follow-on version of the AT-2 for use in helicopters, the AT-2C, appearing more recently, has semi-automatic command to line-of-sight guidance, referred to as SACLOS. A first-generation ATGM distributed widely is the AT-3 Sagger, wire-guided with a shaped charged warhead carried in a fiberglass suitcase. It is fired from a rail on the lid with guidance by means of a periscopic sight, firing button, and control stick. This again was a manual command to line-of-sight system capable of engaging targets from 500 to 3,000 meters and penetrating armor up to 400 millimeters thick. Motorized rifle troops in BTRs are deployed in 2 teams of 3 men, each carrying 2 rounds. One of the munitions carriers fires the RPG-7. Saggers are also mounted on and fired from vehicles in a number of configurations. The BMD can fire 1 AT-3 from its launch rail and has a total of 3 missiles available. The BMP can also fire 1 AT-3 from its launch rail, but it has a total of 4 missiles available, allowing the troops to fire Saggers while remaining under armor protection. The anti-tank batteries of Soviet regiments mount 6 AT-3s on BRDM-2s with 8 more rounds stored in the vehicle. An upgraded Sagger, AT-3C, has appeared in recent years aboard BRDMs and helicopters. In these cases, the Sagger has been retrofitted with semi-automatic IR guidance to extend the usefulness of these first-generation systems. Comparatively, there are still many more manually guided AT-3 Saggers in the field than there are AT-2 swatters, but both will continue to be in inventories for years to come and can in no way be ignored as part of the threat. But the Soviets themselves have been concerned about the primary shortcoming of manual command to line-of-sight systems. For one thing, the operator needs to keep both the target and missile in the same field of view. This requires extensive long-term training. Saggers do have a useful advantage. The launch platform for 4 rounds can be dispersed up to 15 meters from the operator in the man-pack version and up to 100 meters in the vehicle-mounted version. However, a useful countermeasure is placing suppressive fire left or right of the launch point. This will disrupt operator control during missile flight time, a relatively long 23 seconds at maximum range. Having detected the launch, you can use high-speed maneuvering to avoid impact. Given the 500-meter missile capture or dead zone for the AT-3, units closer in can readily avoid being hit by maneuvering and by firing to disrupt operator control while the missile is still in the dead zone. This makes it impossible for the operator to acquire and control the missile in the first place. But such effective countermeasures may no longer be so easy to come by in the near future, because since the early 1970s, the Soviets have been fielding second-generation ATGMs. The man-pack AT-3 Sagger is giving way to the AT-4 Spigot. The vehicle-mounted Sagger is giving way to the AT-5 Spandrel. And the AT-2C Swatter is giving way to the AT-6 Spiral. Taken together or individually, these second-generation anti-tank guided missiles represent a severe threat on today's modern battlefield. For the next few minutes, we're going to talk about the AT-4 Spigot, the AT-5 Spandrel, and then the AT-6 Spiral. Finally, we will describe what the total threat looks like and what we can do about it if we have to go to war against these weapons tomorrow. Let's start with a look at the AT-4 Spigot. In general, the AT-4 Spigot will replace the man-pack Sagger and may replace Sagger on the BMP and BMD as well. The AT-4 Spigot is a tube-launched, wire-guided cyclone system, and the missile has a heat warhead. The missile tube length is about 1,200 millimeters, diameter is 120 millimeters, and the missile itself is slightly smaller than the Sagger and weighs 7 kilograms. A three-man crew deploys the missile system. One carries the launcher and the others 2 rounds each. In the AT-4 Spigot, the optics are integrated into a common package. The periscope provides for both optical target tracking and IR missile tracking. Because the AT-4 Spigot is a cyclone system, there is no provision for remoting the operator from the launch platform. The operator needs only to keep the target in his sights, and the cyclone's capability does the rest of the job, since the missile is automatically slaved to the line of sight. AT-4 Spigot has a minimum effective range of 100 meters, a maximum effective range of 2,000 meters, and travels at a velocity of 150 to 200 meters per second, giving it a maximum flight time of just 10 to 13 seconds. Probability of a hit on the first round is 90% in ideal conditions, degraded somewhat in actual combat. This sharp reduction in flight time in the AT-4 compared with the AT-3 puts additional pressure on the defender because there is only about half as much time available for detection, reaction, and evasion. The heat warhead is assessed as being capable of penetrating armor 500 to 600 millimeters thick. Because the launch rail is compatible with both AT-4 and AT-5 missiles, it is expected that both missiles will be carried in a single vehicle. For those vehicles mounting ATGMs atop main guns, as in the BMP with AT-3 Sagger, it is expected that the transition will be made to a canistered ATGM. AT-4 guidance and control capability with respect to initial launch azimuth forms a cone that shows how much leeway the operator has in steering the missile to the target. While no tanker willingly presents himself as a crossing target to any ATGM, evasive action sometimes has this partial effect. Evasive action might work at ranges less than 500 meters, and the tanker must choose between plowing along head-on or taking evasive action by maneuver if hull defilade or other cover is not available. Farther from the AT-4, it is clear that the gunner can track even the widest lateral moves the tanker is likely to use. While closer in, the gunner will have more difficulty, and the tanker may even be able to escape entirely by means of evasion. But the dead zone is only 100 meters, and as soon as the gunner captures control of the missile beyond that, the tank is a live target, a target he hopes to kill. The tanker's problems are even more severe when the ATGM system is the AT-5 Spandrel, due mainly to its longer reach, estimated at 4,000 meters. AT-4s and AT-5s may be expected to be effective not only against tanks, but also in a more limited sense against helicopters. The AT-5 Spandrel is a cyclone system. Since the late 1970s, the AT-5 has been mounted on the BRDM-2 Scout car, but that's no guarantee that's the way it's going to stay. Missiles for these ATGMs have not been seen, but in each case the round is stored, transported, and mounted in a fiberglass tube. On the BRDM-2, 5 missiles are mounted on a transversible mount just behind the 2 front hatches. Rotatable electro-optics that integrate optical and missile tracking IR sights in a periscope are located atop the gunner's hatch on the right front of the roof. Provision of this hatch behind the launcher verifies that the launcher can fold back into the hull for reloading under armor protection. It is thought that 10 reload missiles can be carried inside, giving a total of 15 rounds available for use by each vehicle. In the AT-5, the launch tube is 1,300 millimeters long and 155 millimeters in diameter. The tube has a blowout cap at the front and is flared at the rear. The total assembly, including the missile, weighs 24 kilograms. The missile has a wire command link and mounts a heat warhead. As the tube is mounted on the rail, it is thought that all electrical and mechanical connections for firing are completed, and the system is ready for action. Presence of the optics housing indicates the vehicle is equipped with AT-5, even if the launcher is retracted, a useful recognition feature. As for the AT-5 missile, maximum range is thought to approach 4,000 meters, and velocity is over 250 meters per second. At that range, missile flight time is about 16 seconds, so the AT-5 has reduced the time you have available for detection and evasive action. With the Sagger, you had a maximum time of 23 seconds. The AT-5 launch signature may be big enough to give you a bit of a head start. Minimum effective range for the AT-5 is 100 meters, so the dead zone is very small. At maximum range of 4,000 meters, probability of a hit on the first round is in excess of 90% under ideal conditions, degraded somewhat in actual combat. The heat warhead, as with the AT-4, is capable of penetrating armor from 500 to 600 millimeters thick. AT-5 missiles are mounted in fiberglass tubes that are otherwise unprotected when the launcher is in the launch position. Keep that in mind when you think countermeasures. The older Soviet Hind D helicopters, equipped with the AT-2C swatters, are being replaced by the Hind E, mounting the AT-6 Spandrel. The AT-6 is mounted in pairs at each wingtip on the Hind E for a total of 4 missiles. The AT-6 Spandrel is tube-launched with Seklos guidance and is believed to have a radio frequency command link like the swatter. The exact missile dimensions are unknown, but the warhead is believed to be somewhat heavier than those for AT-4s and AT-5s. Range is estimated to be 5,000 meters with a velocity of about 450 meters per second. Flight time to maximum range is 10 to 15 seconds. Armor penetration is assessed to be 600 to 700 millimeters. Let's assume we're looking at a Hind E actually equipped with AT-6s, and the gunner launches a missile. As in the AT-2C system, the gunner has to maintain the target in his field of view for missile flight time, 10 to 15 seconds for the AT-6. That's a constraint on the helicopter, because only limited evasive action can be taken so the gunner can track the target in his sights. This makes the helicopter vulnerable. It is difficult to acquire tank targets beyond 4,000 meters, also a constraint, so you can expect to find AT-6s being fired somewhat closer in. Nevertheless, probability of a hit on the first round under ideal conditions is 90%, degraded somewhat in actual combat. The severity of the Soviet ATGM threat extends beyond the fact that these are second-generation missiles, faster, longer range, more accurate. The other main factor is that there will be many of them, especially AT-4 and AT-5, distributed among opposing force units. It is crucial for you to recognize that virtually every ground force unit will be equipped with one or the other or both. In the motorized rifle divisions, the BMP-equipped regiment carries a launch rail on each vehicle, mounting the AT-3. In the BTR regiments, the anti-tank platoon has 2 BTR-60s or 70s that carry 4 AT-4 launch systems. In each ATGM battery of both BMP and BTR regiments, and the anti-tank battalion at division level, there are 9 BRDM-2s with AT-5 launchers. In a tank division, the BMP carries launch rails for AT-3s on its guns, and the ATGM battery is equipped with 9 BRDM-2s with AT-5 launchers. Taking into account that infantry carry shoulder-fired rockets such as the RPG-18 with a range of 200 meters and the RPG-16 at 800 meters, you have to accept the ideas that the Soviets have an anti-tank weapon to cover virtually every range from a few hundred to over 5,000 meters. Further, the density of weapons within that span will be extremely high. Although the Hind E is not a dedicated anti-tank helicopter, its AT-6s must be added to the count. Given the short flight time of, for example, the AT-4 at 11 seconds, what can you do as a tanker to defend against this and other ATGMs, and what countermeasures can you use? Because of its small frontal profile, a well-camouflaged AT-4 will be difficult to detect. Even when launched, the signature is small. Altogether, under combat conditions, detection of launch and of the missile in flight is likely to come later than sooner, eating up your reaction time. Time may be so short, in fact, that just evasion by maneuvering may not be good enough. But recall that to hit you, the ATGM operator has to keep you in sight. So the instant you spot a launch, smoke him immediately with grenades, but then evade as usual, because he may continue to track on your last known position before enough smoke develops to screen you from his sight. Another good move is hull defilade, if you can get there fast enough. In general, move from cover to cover as fast as possible to reduce your exposure time in his sights. Keep in mind also that in both the missile is in a fiberglass tube and is vulnerable to any kind of fire, so keep it coming hot and heavy wherever likely ATGM positions are expected. If the unit opposing you is BMP equipped, that single AT-3 on the gun launch rail is not going to be fired on the move, a factor you may be able to use to advantage. So far as helicopter AT-6s are concerned, local cover may not be as effective. Because they are not AT dedicated, but are general ground support, they may not spot you. And again, smoke may help if you can get it into the operator's line of sight. Maneuver and coordinated air defense may get you the benefit of either killing the helicopter or forcing it into evasive maneuvers that will carry you out of the operator's field of view. Summing it up, the Soviets have introduced a severe new threat to the modern battlefield: anti-tank guided missiles. With unprecedented speed, range, and accuracy. The way toward defeating these new Soviet anti-tank guided missiles lies in knowing their strengths and dispositions in the field and working on their weaknesses to defeat them.